Tonight begins a series of lectures regarding the great matriarchs of Israel, who were our mothers. And as I hope we'll see, just as we had a rule in the Torah that Masei Ovos Siman Labonim, that what occurred to our forefathers, what occurred to the Ovos, to Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and to the tribes of Israel, was an indication of what would happen later to the Jewish people in their history. That rule follows through just as well regarding our mothers. And therefore the lives of our mothers have a great deal of relevance to us today, and they are not merely to be seen as ancient stories or legends from times past. There also is a caveat that I have to say regarding all of these lectures. There is a trend, even in the religious world, to deal with the people in the Bible as though they were our next door neighbors. To deal as though they were ordinary human beings. And people therefore say, dysfunctional families, this type of situation, etc., etc. Now, that's in direct opposition to Jewish tradition. The Jewish tradition is im arishonim kemalachim. If we say that previous generations were like angels, then onu kivnei adam, that we can say that we are perhaps human beings. But if previous generations, we treat them as human beings, then we have to treat our generation as though we are animals, as though we're donkeys. There's a basic concept in Judaism of yeridas hadoros, of a decline in the quality, spiritual quality of generations. So even though technologically, medically, we're far advanced, but in terms of the soul and the spirit, in terms of the connection to the Creator, the farther we are from Sinai, the farther we are from our ancestors, the less connected we are, the more difficult it is. And therefore, when we talk about the Sorah as we do tonight, so we're not talking about, Aunt Sarah. We're talking about a different type of person, a person that we have never seen or met the like of. I know that I can say in my own lifetime, the people that I knew as an adolescent or as a young man growing up, I have never seen those type of Jews again. It's not that we don't have great people today, but what that was is not here anymore. And so that has to be borne in mind. Because of that, almost everything I'm going to say tonight is taken either from the Medrash or from the Talmud. It's not taken from any secondary sources. And my interpretation of what the Medrash or the Talmud says is solely my responsibility, though as I often tell my children, I am never wrong. In the Torah we read that Abraham marries Sarai, and then the name is changed to Sarah. Who is this woman whom he marries? So it's a relative of his, niece, and therefore throughout the Bible he refers to her as my relative, achosihi. She's my sister, but the sister in the Bible means a relative. It's in terms just as the word och in Hebrew refers not only to a brother, but it refers to anyone that's your relative. Sometimes it even refers to a friend. So the beginning of their lives is practically unrecorded for us in the Chumash. When we first meet them, they already are of advanced age. Avraham is already 75 years old at the Bris Bein Absorim. And the major events of their life happen when they are elderly. Sarah is Avraham's partner in the great task. Avraham comes to the realization of God, of one God, for which he risks his life. The Rambam says he was 52 years old when he came to that realization. There are others that say that he did it even at a younger age. There's an opinion even at the age of 3. But Avraham is alone in the world. People that are alone need a companion, and she is his companion. She's not only his companion in life, but she's his companion in the task and the mission that they set for themselves. So as the Gemara says, Avraham megayer anoshim, Sarah megayeret noshim. Avraham Avinu worked with the men, she worked with the women, to bring this idea of grand monotheism into the world. The Meiri says they were so successful that by the time of their death, almost half the world had an idea of monotheism. They laid the groundwork for the fact that even though the world would remain pagan for thousands of years afterwards, there is within the human soul an echo of monotheism that exists everywhere. And that is Avraham and Sarah. And in fact, Sarah is identified, Ohel Sarah, the tent of Sarah, the house of Sarah. You know, everybody can be a sport with achnosas orchim. You can invite people to your house. But it's the woman that has to cook and bake and clean up afterwards, and so you're a sport on someone else's back. And the Gemara points it out here by Sarah itself. Isha einat Sarah ba'orchim. She has a different view of guests, right? The husband is very expansive about it. She's more limited about it. But she is the woman that puts the house together. And therefore the rabbis say in the Medrash that all of the words of Eishes Chayil that we read are a description of Sarah. And that Sarah is the paradigm of the Eshet Chayil that is described in Mishlei. Sarah is a very beautiful woman. All women are beautiful, but some are very beautiful. The rabbis say that ordinary people, ordinary women look, so to speak, as a chimpanzee looks like a human being. That's how they look in comparison to the beauty of Sarah. And as we know in life, being too beautiful, like being too smart, too anything, brings with it problems. And all of her life we see the problems that she suffers from. Wherever they go, somebody wants to take her. They go to Egypt, Paro takes her. The land of Israel, Avimelech takes her. Og, the Vayovo Hapolit, the one who survived and came and told Avraham the story about the 5 kings and the 4 kings and the war, his sole purpose was to take Sarah away. So she's always in jeopardy. And she lives that kind of a life, which colors everything that happens. Because of the fact that she realizes, and Abraham is the one that tells her, Ata yodati ki isha yefas marot, now I know what a beautiful woman you are. We come down by the Egyptians, I see how they look at you, I see what's going to happen here. And therefore that is a problem, a great problem. The Gemara says that there were 4 beautiful women in the world: Sarah, Rochav, who we read in the book of Yoshua, Abigail, who was a wife of David HaMelech, and Queen Esther. Now, there's another opinion in the Gemara that Queen Esther was not such a beautiful woman, but that she had that indescribable quality called chen. Chut shel chen v'chesed nesucha al ponea. Chen is, you can't buy it, right? So there are people that have that quality, that they have such grace and they have such an aura about them that people find them beautiful, even if you identify every one of their features and they are not perfect. But here, this opinion of the Gemara Megillah was that Esther was a beautiful woman. But Sarah is at the top of the list in beauty. And because of that, Sarah is constantly, as I mentioned, vulnerable. And vulnerability plays a role in a person's personality. Richard Nixon said that if the whole world was, you'd also be paranoid if the whole world was against you. So if you feel that the whole world is against you, then the whole world is against you. So there's a vulnerability that exists within people, and that's her, so to speak, Achilles' heel. That's her vulnerability to the fact that she is so beautiful and so blessed. Now, she has major tests in life. And the tests are of such a nature that they intertwine one with the other. The Gemara says that all of our mothers were by nature, by biological nature, barren women. Akorotoyu. And the Gemara always asks the question, why did God do that? What purpose is there in that? And different answers are given. But the main idea that's given is that the survival of the Jewish people is miraculous. Sarah is not supposed to have children. And she herself says, Tzchok asali Elokim. God is making a joke here. Kol hashomeya yitzachak li. Whoever hears about it is going to laugh. Because how can it be? And especially in her old age, she's 90 years old. She says, Achrei velosi hoisa li edna. After I've become old and withered, all of a sudden I'm going to become young and refreshed again. She can't deal with it. There's no hope. And God says to her through Abraham that attitude is incorrect. Hayipole ma'ashem davar. Is anything impossible for God? And therefore, that's how Jews have to live. From our first mother onwards, we are living with the fact that we shouldn't be here. According to natural law, according to history, according to the way the world works, so to speak, we should not be here. And we should not expect that it should be different. Hayipole ma'ashem dover. And the mere survival and existence of the Jewish people, of the state of Israel, of Torah within the Jewish people, is itself the testimony to God in the world. That's the way God, Atem edai num Hashem. God says, you are my witnesses. What does it mean, you are my witnesses? You get up every day and you say, you know, I witness that God is here. No, you are my witness. You're here. That's enough. Because anybody that steps back and looks at it has to stand back in awe and wonder. The Jews don't get it. But there are a lot of people in the world that do get it. That do understand. And we have the famous posuk in the Novi Malachi, Ani Hashem lo shonisi. I, the Lord God, have not changed. I don't have any new religions gone down the horizon. I'm not politically correct. I'm not cutting-edge progressive. What's the proof of that? Ve'atem b'nei Yaakov lo chilisem. You, the children of Israel, you haven't been destroyed. That's the proof that I'm still here. But otherwise, how could you be here? So Sarah is the paradigm of that. She's the example of that. She's an Akora, v'lo v'lod. She did not give birth. She could not give birth. Gemara says all sorts of biological problems, fertility problems with her. And the Rabbanu Shalom says, yeah, next year at this time, in the words of the Medrash, they drew a line on the wall, and they said when the sun reaches that line next year, you will have a child. The Jewish people will be here. Now, Sarah wants to have a child. And she tries all sorts of methods to try and have that child. One of the methods is to bring a child into the house through another woman. It's a known fact that a certain percentage, and not an insignificant percentage, of families that husband and wife that don't have children, when they adopt a child or want to raise a child in the house, then all of a sudden somehow they're able to have their own natural children. Unexplained, but that is the phenomenon. And that's the phenomenon that she attempts here. She comes down to Egypt. Paro takes her as a captive. Because he does, the Rabbanu Shalom afflicts him with all sorts of painful male diseases. And Paro discovers that she's really the wife of Abraham and not only his relative. And he frees her. And not only frees her, he gives her a great dowry. He makes Abraham a wealthy man. He makes Lot a wealthy man. And one of the gifts that he gives, according to the Medrash, is this maidservant Hagar. Now, Hagar is descended from Chum. The Mefarshim say that from Avraham Avinu, all the world came. So Sarah is descended from Shem, the Semitic, and the Bnei Keturah, where we read about at the end of Avraham's life, are from Yefes, and Hagar was from Chum. So that the words in the Torah, Av Hamon Goyim Nesaticha, I have made you the father of many nations, is to be taken literally, because all of the three main races or strains, however we want to identify it within the human condition, all have a relationship to Abraham and to his house. So Paro gives her Hagar. Now, Hagar, and she says, Ulai boneh mimeno, maybe you'll marry her. It's a time of polygamy. You have more than one wife. and she'll become pregnant, she'll have a child, we'll have a child in the house, and the child in the house will be able to, I will also be able to have a child. Ulai yiboneh mimeno. Perhaps I will be able to build my house through her. Hagar, the Medrash says as follows, remarkable Medrash. Hoyu matronos bos lishol bishlomo shel Sora. Sora had important guests that came to visit her in her house. Sora omeres lahem tzu'u v'shalu bishlomo shel aluva Hagar. Visit the poor girl Hagar too. I mean, she's not to be treated as though she's not in the house. She's not the maid. She's also entitled to conversation and friendship and socialization. So, what was Hagar's reaction? The problem with Hagar is that she mistakes what happens. So Hagar said to them, Sorai gvirti ein sisra kegluya. You look at Sora, you think you see a pious woman, righteous woman, kind woman. Can't be that she really is that way. It's a little hypocritical. Only on the outside, not on the inside. Near is tzaddikas, ve'enot tzaddikas. She appears like she's a tzaddikas, a righteous woman, but she really isn't. Why? Ilu hoisa tzaddikas, if she would be such a righteous woman, ru kamashonim shalonis abra. She's married to him for 50 years and they never had a child. She never conceived. Ve'ani b'layla achas nisabarti, and in the first night I became pregnant already. So here you have the ultimate confusion of fertility with righteousness. And the ultimate confusion of how God runs things, that he has to run it the way we want it to run. And therefore we set our standards for him. But the truth of the matter is that God is not bound to our standards at all. And our measurement of things are not his measurement of things. So Hagar says, I'm better than she is. She is because it says, Vateira Hagar kinisabra. Hagar saw that she was pregnant. Vateikal Sora gvirto beineha. So she treated Sora lightly. So the Medrash says, what does it mean she treated her lightly? She talked about her. People that came to visit, and they came to talk to her, so she said, Sora is not such a tzaddikas, Sora is not such a great woman. If she would be such a great woman, she would have had a child. Sora omeres imzos ani esasek. This is my companion? Someone that does this to me? Someone that treats me in such a negative fashion? So Sora, and here's one of the domestic crises which we find amongst the Avos and the Amahos. Ani avarer adover im Adona. I'm going to go talk to Abraham. Let him straighten her out. Vatomer Sora el Avram chamosi olech. I'm angry at you. The dreaded words that no husband wants to hear. Loma ato shomea bikloni v'shosek. You hear that she insults me, that she denigrates me, that she says I'm a hypocrite, that she says I'm not a righteous woman, and you don't say anything. Now, silence is punishable also. There are sins of commission and there are sins of omission. So she says, how can you not say anything? Dinu dvorim yesh li itcho. She said, I have a din Torah with you regarding your behavior. Hispalalto, you prayed to God, hein li lo nosato zora. You did not give me a child. And you didn't say you did not give us a child. Hashem nosan l'cha. And you see, God gave you a child, right? So Hagar bore a child, Yishmael. Ilu amarta hein lonu lo nosato zora. If you would have said, not only you didn't give me a child, but you didn't give us a child, I would have also had a child, because God listened to your prayer. And the Medrash adds, this is in the Medrash in Bereishis Rabbah, that she scratched his face in frustration. Sorta lo befonov. And she said, we're going to Din Torah and God is the judge. Yishpot Hashem beini uveinecha. Let God judge in this matter. The rule is, the Gemara says in Brachos, that you should never refer disputes to heaven. All disputes on this earth should remain on this earth. Somebody insulted you, somebody did something wrong, somebody did this, and the Jewish tradition forbids us to pray to heaven, that heaven should get him. Leave heaven out of this. Because when you let heaven into it, it pulls all the files. Right? Oh, this guy is making, he wants, let's look him up. Let's see what the database is. What about him? So she demands that God should judge between her and Abraham. So the Medrash says a frightening thing. Sarah should have lived also to be 175 years old. She dies at 127. But al yedei she'omra yishpot Hashem beini uveino, because she said, let God judge. So in heaven they judged, they took away 48 years. So there's a lesson there. That even domestic disputes should not be referred to heaven. Because of this, Sarah mistreats Hagar. The Chumash is an honest book. It doesn't cover up for anybody. So again, you have to remember that we're talking about our mother Sarah. We're not talking about, the next door neighbor not treating the Ozeret correctly. But the Torah says, V'ataneha Sarah. Sarah gave her a hard time, so that she fled. So here we have a piece in the Ramban that is so frightening that I hesitate to say it. But if the Ramban said it, so I'm repeating it. The Ramban says, V'ataneha Sarah. Sarah gave her a hard time, afflicted her. V'ativrach miponeha, until Hagar had to flee and go out in the desert, and she asked, the Malach said, what are you doing here? She said, Sarah gvirti anochi barachas. I'm running away from my mistress, from Sarah. She's driven me out. She makes life so that I have to leave the house. So the Ramban says, quote, Chata Sarah imenu. Our mother Sarah sinned in this matter. be'inui hazeh, in her treatment of Hagar. V'gam Avraham behanicho lasos kain. And Avraham also sinned because he let her do it. So, I mean, poor Avraham is caught in the vice here, right? Sarah says to him, how come you're quiet? And she says these things about me? And then the Rabboni Shalom, and then when he tells her, well, do whatever you want, so then the Rabboni Shalom says, how come you're quiet and you let her do what she wants? But everything that the Ovos and the Mohos do has cosmic, historic importance. It's not the story of what happened to two people. And therefore the Ramban says, Vishoma Hashem Elonyo. The Rabboni Shalom heard Hagar, because we have a rule, Elokim Yavakesh Nirdof. God always hears the cries of those who are being persecuted. And the Gemara says a frightening thing, Afilu Tzadik Rodef Rosha. Even if the righteous are persecuting the evil, Hashem listens, Yavakesh Nirdof. So in life, and even in national life, somehow we should try and make ourselves the Nirdof instead of the Rodef. Circumstances are such that it's very hard to do that. But we should realize that it's not without a penalty to be the Rodef. V'lochei nosan lo ben. And therefore God gave her a child, gave Hagar a child. Sheyehei pere odom. That's a wild animal. Jihad. Blows himself up. Doesn't care. Nothing stops it. No rules. No inhibitions. That's pere odom. Wild as can be. And that's how the Torah describes Yishmael. Yishmael is without limits, without boundaries. There's no inner force that holds him back. V'la'anos zera Avraham v'sora b'chol minei ho'inui. And therefore he will persecute the children of Abraham in all sorts and manners of persecution throughout the ages. Now the Ramban lives in 13th century Spain, in Toledo. He's not living in a Muslim society, he's living in a Christian society. The Parish Ramban is written before he goes to Eretz Israel. And nevertheless, he describes that the Muslims, the Bnei Yishmael, will lano zera Avraham v'sora b'chol minei inui. All sorts of persecutions will fall on us from Yishmael. We're living witnesses. Because Sarah, the Ramban said, overstepped her boundaries with the behavior with Hagar, and Avraham was silent and allowed it to occur, and therefore. So I'm not here to defend our government, God forbid, but a lot of things are simply out of their hands. Doesn't make any difference. Stand on your head, whatever good idea you have. Utsu eitzo v'sufor, dabru dover v'lo yokum, because the Rebbeinu Shalom does it his way. And so the story of Avraham and Sarah plays itself out generations, centuries, millennia later. But it plays itself out. We find in the Torah that a woman came to Avraham Avinu to become a Gioris. And for whatever reason, Avraham Avinu refuses her. Even though Avraham Avinu accepts almost everybody in the world, but he refuses her. And she later turns out to be a concubine for the son of Esav, and from her is born the tribe of Amalek. So the Gemara says, how did that happen? Because Avram acted out of character. You were av hamon goyim. You're makabel geir. If you're not makabel anybody, so if you don't accept, you don't accept. If you're not in the business, so to speak. But if you accept and you got a sign on your door, strangers welcome, and somebody comes and you don't treat them correctly, so then consequences. And that's the same thing in the story of Sarah and Hagar. And Sarah is the righteous woman. She is the pious woman. She is the tzaddikus. But here, because somehow it is not correct, so almost disastrous consequences flow from the matter. Remarkable Ramban, remarkable insight into the Jewish story and into how we're affected by it. Now, Sarah throws Hagar out a second time with Yishmael. So here there's a Tosefta in Sota that describes that scene. Hoysa Sarah imenu roesh Yishmael bone bumsin v'tzod chagovim aktir lavoda zora. She sees him bringing paganism into the house. Into the house of Avraham Avinu, he brings paganism. Omra, so she said, Shema Yilmod Yitzchak b'ni mimenu. I waited 90 years to have a child. I have this miracle child. The Yitzchak Yikori L'chozora. The whole future of the Jewish people, the whole future of civilization lies in this child. And look who his playmates are. Look who's in the house. Look who's his half-brother. Yishmael. And Yishmael is worshiping Avodah Zarah. And therefore, Yitzchak will also succumb. And she said, Nimtza Shem Shamayim Ischalal Bedover. It'll be not only it'll be wrong, it'll be a Chil Hashem. Everybody will say, look at Avram's children. Now, throughout Jewish history, we have the rule that children don't necessarily follow the ways of their parents. And great people had children that were less great. The Gemara itself says, "Mipnei ma ein b'nei talmidei chachomim." Why do we find that the children of the Torah scholars often are not? They don't do it. So the Gemara says so that people shouldn't think that it's an inheritance, that you're entitled to it, that it comes automatically. And we have, in the Torah itself, we have numerous examples of such situations. When we discuss Rivka with Esav, and you have Moshe's children, so Moshe's grandson ends up being a priest of Avodah Zarah. We read it in the book of Shoftim. You imagine such a thing? But that's what happens. So she therefore says, listen, Sarah says, not only do we have to save Yitzchak in order to preserve the Jewish people. Otherwise, you and I, everything we did, it's canceled. Because everybody will say, look at their children. Obviously, it's not true. Obviously, their methods are wrong, because look what happened to the family. Omar lo Avraham. So Avraham said to her, Li'acher she'asanua gvira nitradunu mitoch beisa. After we have made her, she's a wife in the house. She has standing here. So we should kick her out now. Isn't that also a kichil Hashem? Ma brios omrim aleinu. What will they say about us? The great hospitable Abraham and Sarah, the open house, the tent that's open from four sides. Everybody can come in. And they kick this woman out with her child. Lo nimsa shem shamayim ischalo b'dover. And you see how Chazal discussed all the nettlesome problems. They didn't, skirt the issue. Omra lo. So she said to him, Hoil v'ata omer chilul Hashem b'dover hazeh. Oh, so if you say that it's a question of chilul Hashem, God's name being desecrated, so let's ask God. What does he want us to do? Because you're worried about this chilul Hashem, so let's ask the Shem. What does he say? Yachriya kodesh baruch hu bein dvorai lidvorecha. And that's when God tells him, Kol asher tomar elecha sora shma bekola. In this matter, in weighing the chilul Hashem, so to speak, you do what Sarah says. Because Sarah sees it more clearly than you do. Obviously, because it says that Avraham felt badly. Odos Beno, it was his son that he's throwing out of the house. So one can never say that that's an easy moment for anyone, God forbid. But God says, listen to Sarah. From that, the Gemara says that Sarah is greater in prophecy than Avraham Avinu was. And that Sarah is the first of the 7 women prophets that existed amongst the Jewish people. And that Sarah's relationship with God, so to speak, is on the level of Nevuah, of a prophecy level that is, so to speak, even higher than that of Avraham Avinu. So this is a hard call, right? Tough decision. Whatever you do is wrong. That's what the Sefta says here. Whatever you do is wrong. You throw them out so that people will say, look how cruel they are. You keep them in the house, Yitzchak is ruined. The people will say, look at their children, they're all bums. So, in life, many times, we are faced with choices where whatever we do is not good. In life, sometimes there are choices that whatever we do is right and good. Only then the question is, which is the most good? Which is the best choice, right? I go to the Grand Canyon or to Alaska, right? So it's a hard choice. But whatever you do, you're going to see God's wonders, okay? But sometimes the choices are not good. Whatever we do is not good. It will be painful. So what do we do then? That's the choice that's faced here in the house of Avraham and Sarah. And that's why the Rabbanu Shalom says, Kol asher tomar elecha Sarah shma bekola. She has the wisdom and the prophecy to know which is the least bad, so to speak. The least level of wrong. And we find that paradigm throughout the Tanakh and throughout Jewish history, is that the mother You know, there used to be a program called Father Knows Best, but we all know that Mother knows best. Chochmas noshim bonso beisa. The wisdom of women is what builds the house of Israel. And the Gemara says that women have a bina yesera, they have a greater insight into things than men do, certainly spiritually, in other ways. And it's now all the psychologists have proven that, you know, men and women are wired differently is the word that they use. So it's a different thing completely. It's not just a different biological thing. So because of that, therefore, Sarah is held to be correct in this very, very difficult thing. The birth of Yitzchak, even then, Sarah is accused of that Abraham is not the father. Rashi quotes there, Leitzone Ador, the people that make fun of everything, for which there is no shortage ever. And we know one wisecrack can destroy, you know, an hour's good lecture. So the Leitzone Ador said, Avimelech nisabra Sarah. Sarah became pregnant from Avimelech, took her into his house. And that's because Sarah herself said, Vadoni zokein. When she says, Vatitzak Sarah bekir bolemor, when she laughed, and she said, how am I going to become young again? I'm so old. And then she added two fateful words. She said, Vadoni zokein, and he's an old man. All right, even if I get there, what's going to be with him? By the way, the Gemara says from there, the rule that for Sholem Bayis, you don't have to say everything. Because when God repeated the conversation to Avraham Avinu, so God said to him, Loma zeh tzochaka Sarah leimor. Why did Sarah laugh, saying that she couldn't have a child? But he didn't say to him, he didn't quote that she said, and you're an old man. Because he knew that Avraham would have been hurt by that. So the Rabboni Shalom, the Loshen of the Gemara is, Dibra Torah Loshen Badoi. The Torah spoke not exactly the entire truth. Go to La Sholom. Harmony, peace as such. The Gemara says that was the tactic of Aaron HaKohen to try and settle disputes between people. So he would go to one party and say, you know, the guy didn't really mean it. You misunderstood him. And you go to the other one and he said, you know, the other guy is really ready to make up with you, you know, yeah. When in reality, that may not have been so. But Shalom is an overriding value. And since it's an overriding value, so we're able to shave things, so to speak. It's not outright lies, God forbid, but it's not the 100% the truth either. So Sarah said, Vadoni zokein. My master is an old man. Since she said, my master is an old man, so therefore when she had the child, so the Leitzone Ador said, she herself said that he is not, he's incapable. So therefore it must be Avimelech nisabra Sarah, that she became pregnant from Avimelech, not from Avraham. So again, we have an example of how words are lethal. Even throwaway phrases. That's the words of the Gemara is that the tongue is the most protected of all organs. We've got lips and 32 teeth and everything to try and hold it in. Because once it's said, once it's out, so then there's not much that we can do about it. The Gemara says on the day, which also is a great idea, on the day that Sarah conceived. So the Gemara says, B'shor shenifkeda imenu Sarah, when Sarah was remembered and conceived and gave birth, harbe akoros nifkedu imo. Many, many other women in the world who until then had also had been barren also were remembered and became fertile. Harbe chershim nispakchu. Many people who were deaf all of a sudden regained their hearing. Harbe sumim nitpatchu. Many people who were sightless were now able to see. Harbe shotim nishtafu. Many people who were foolish and crazy became normal and sane. So that's the medrash in Breishis Rabbah. The interpretation of this medrash, except for its literal interpretation, is, again, Avraham was promised, "V'nivruchu b'chol kol goyei haaretz," all the world, kol mishpachos ha'adoma, all the families of the earth will be blessed through you. That's our task. The task of the Jewish people is to be a blessing. Right, to invent the polio vaccine. To help people. That's our task. That's what God promised Avraham. That through you, all of the world will be blessed. You're the conduit for blessing. So Sarah is also the conduit for blessing. But the conduit for blessing is not only physically. If the world sees that Sarah has a child and that Sarah survives, then other people should also see that they can also survive. Other nations, other societies that are under pressure, they should also be able to see that they survive. People who are deaf, who don't hear any hope for themselves, people who are blind, that goes in darkness. If you look at Sarah, so then all of a sudden you can see. People who are out of their minds can become sane again because of the example of Sarah. So that is a great quality, that Sarah is not just our mother, and not just the paradigm for us, but Sarah is the mother of all humanity. And the Gemara compares her to Chava, the original woman. So by Chava it says, Hi hoisa ein kol choy. She was the mother of every living thing. All of us come from her. There was a few years ago, there was a whole study in which paleontologists, etc., said that all the human race comes from one woman. Based on DNA or something, somehow they figured out all of us come from one woman, which is Chava. We all come from Chava. But we all come from Sarah too. And not just we, as the Jewish people, come from Sarah, but to a certain extent we can say, Hi hoisa ein kol chai. She's the mother of every living thing. Because if you look at her and you look at her life and her difficulties and her triumph at the end, so then everybody can do it. Then there's hope for everyone. Then no one is locked out. No one is shut out from God's mercy and from the ability to rise above it. And therefore the Gemara says in Brachas, B'tchila nasi Sarai le'umasa. First her name was Sarai rather. Sarai means my officer, my leader. Only for her nation she thought about herself. Ulebesof nasi Sora l'chol ha'olam kulo. But at the end she's Sarah for the whole world, not just for us. So there's a universality here that has to be dealt with, and that is expressive in the life of Sarah. One final note, there are hundreds and hundreds of midrashim about it. The Gemara says that the beauty of Sarah is the reason that Abraham was successful. This is a Medrash Tanchuma in Chaya Sarah. It says as follows. Remember, I mentioned to you that Eishes Chayil was said about Sarah. Eishes Chayil ateres bala ze Abraham shoya makonen al Sarah. It says Dorshot Tzemeru Pishtim. Tzemeru Pishtim is shatnes, right? Can't go together. So the Medrash says that was the problem with Yishmael and Yitzchak. It was shatnes. He couldn't put it together. Therefore, that's why she had to send him away. Zomamo soda vatiko cheyu, zomamo venotlo sdeya machpela. Because of her, Avraham Avinu had to buy the Moras HaMachpelah, which became the burial place of our fathers and mothers. Kapo porsa laoni, shoisa nosenes zdokos umalbeshes arumim. Because of her great works of charity and goodness. Kiven shemesa, when she died, Kofzo ziknol Avraham. Avraham became an old man, because the next pasuk is Vayi ki zokein Avraham bo bayomim. So he was 137 years old when she died, and he wasn't old. But when Sarah died, so then his youth departed from him. Lo nizborech Avraham elo machmas Sarah. All the blessings that came to Avraham Avinu came only because of Sarah. And therefore it says that he came to Vayispod Avraham LeSarah belief kosa, because Avraham realized that to a certain extent everything that he achieved now was gone with her. And that from now on was a different situation completely. So these midrashim and gemaras give us an insight into our great mother. Portray for us the condition, human and spiritual, but also the greatness of a person that really is the mother of all positive things that exist in human society.